going up into second position, so the number 18 Audi down to 4th place now. It looked as if that car was down to 4th, and one of the Porsches up into 3rd place. But as they come through now to turn 4, it's still Billy Lowe in the 999 Audi in the lead. In second position, the 888 Audi, his teammate of Po-Han Chen and Yen Ming Su. And in 3rd place, the Team 69 Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. We didn't see quite who that was, but a good battle going on at the front now. The two Audis going at it hammer and tongs. And Po-Han Chen and Yen Ming Su, that number 888 car, although it's considered in the category below, certainly keeping the senior stablemate honest there, the 999 Audi. Riding shotgun there for his teammate. Billy Lowe, driving that 999 Audi, will be desperate to put a little bit of distance between him and his teammate, and it does look as if he's managed to do that as they come through this twisty back section of the track. You can see the clock in the top of your screen there. 58 minutes still to go in this race, but Billy Lowe still in the lead. The number 888 Audi in second place, and the two cars there, that is the other Audi, the number 18 Audi, driven by Lu Jiwei, who lost out at the start. And going deep into that final corner, and it looks as if he got a better drive out of there than the Porsche, and now he's in the slipstream, and he'll see if he can get a tow and then overtake going into turn 1. Just going to the inside now, and a fairly straightforward move, and the number 18 car of Lu Jiwei up into 3rd position. The number 9 Porsche down to 4th now. So Lu Jiwei will be looking to make up for lost time. He lost out badly at the start from 2nd position, ending up down in 4th place. And the number 888 Audi still in 2nd place and still keeping Billy Lowe honest up at the front there. The number 9 Porsche down into 4th place now. And a little bit of daylight developing between the number 9 Porsche in 4th place and the 69 Porsche, the fellow 69 Racing Team car, which is currently in 5th position. So Billy Lowe still in the lead there. Fellow 888 Audi R8 car in 2nd place of Po-Han Chen and Yen Ming Su. But Billy Lowe not really pulling out too much of a lead at this stage. Still in 1st position and looking relatively untroubled, but not managing to put a huge amount of daylight between himself and the 888 car. And that will be very good news indeed for the 888 car. And you can see already how much of a gap there is back down to 3rd place. Back down to the other Audi, the number 18 car. Here we see some of the action a little bit closer further down the grid. That's the 98 car of Jeffrey Z, who we spoke to. And he's got ahead of the 69 car. So Jeffrey Z up into 5th position now. So some closer racing further down the grid. The 69 car into 6th place. The number 22 Porsche in 7th place. And then you see the BMW in 8th place. That is the FIS team. The only GTS entry in the race, the BMW M4 there, driven by Oscar Lee and Betty Chen, the Taiwan duo. And you can see just how much elevation change there is there between turn 1 and turn 2. Turn 1 is a very long right-hander, a very long and slow right-hander, and then the drivers don't have time to react at all before all of a sudden hard braking again down to turn 2, the left-hander, and that's downhill and it's very hard to see. And you can see there, as the cars go through the infield section, quite a lot of elevation change on this Sepang International Circuit, and a lot for the drivers to get used to. But up at the front there, one man who's getting used to being in the lead is this man, Billy Lowe, in the 999 TSRT Audi, and finally putting a little bit of daylight between himself and the fellow sister Audi, the 888 car. Billy Lowe just entering that long back straight there. You can see the starting grid there. That's not the starting grid that they started from, but there are confusingly two different starting grids painted on this Sepang International Circuit, but that's not the start of another lap. This, the drivers are just entering onto now. This is the starting grid of the start-finish line, and Billy Lowe crosses it to begin lap 4 of this 1 hour GT Masters Asia race. The first race of 2 to be held at the Sepang International Circuit this weekend. There you see in third place, Lu Jiwei, just dropping back a little bit now from the second place Audi, the TSRT 888 car. 8.7 seconds behind at the last count. And I would think that Lu Jiwei would be a little bit disappointed to be so far behind his fellow Audi so early in the race. In theory, they should be the same specification. They're both racing in the GTC category, so there shouldn't be too much between them. As you see, the Team 69 Porsche 911 Cup car, the number 9, driven by Cui Yue and Lawrence Liu, driving around in what looks like a rather lonely 4th place at the moment. He's 5 seconds behind the number 18 Audi, but 10 seconds ahead of the number 98 car of Jeffrey Z, the other Audi R8 LMS Cup. 4 Audi R8s in this race, and there you see the number 98 car, driven by Jeffrey Z, currently in 5th position, 10 seconds behind the number 9 of Cui Yue and Lawrence Liu, and 4 seconds ahead of this man. This car is the 69 car that you see, driven by Jackie Wu and Alex Lee. So the field starting to spread out a little bit now. There you see the GTS entry, the FIS team BMW M4, driven by Oscar Lee and Betty Chen. Not too much in the way of incidents so far in this race, and I should think that's just how the drivers would want it. The last thing they want is to be spinning off or colliding with other cars and drivers. All 10 cars still in the race, 50 minutes still to go, 10 minutes gone so far. Here we are with the number 22 car in 8th position of David Lau and Gary Chung, I should say, the Team Pro Spec Porsche 911. 3 Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars in this race. In fact, the GTC category, which is 6 cars strong, comprised of 3 Porsche 911 GT3 cars and 3 Audi R8 LMS Cup cars. Further down the grid, that is the number 62 car, the Seat Leon, driven by Chi Pei-wen and Zhao Peng. And that's leading the 2-litre turbo category. And finally, bringing up the rear, that is the car in 10th position on the road and second in the 2-litre turbo category, the 666 Seat Leon, driven by Lin Shuming and Lin Xinying. And nice to see a variety of cars, a variety of categories being represented in this GT Masters Asia race here at Sepang. Always nice to see different cars, different manufacturers being represented. Audi, Porsche, BMW and Seat featuring on the starting grid today. And as I just mentioned, 4 different categories of racing. So a nice variety there. Here we are, starting another lap is Billy Lowe, and he's put quite a bit of daylight between himself and the 888 Audi now. And the race settling down into what would appear to be something of a good order. There you see the number 18 TKR Audi. So Audi's first, second and third in this race, and indeed first in GT3 and first in GTC. There we are in 5th position on the road, just going through the front of your picture now. That is the number 98 Audi. And you see some of the pit boards being held out there on the left-hand side of your picture. And the mechanics and engineers eager to inform their drivers of how far behind the next car is and how far ahead up the road the car in front is. Pit boards have long been a very useful way of communicating messages from the pit wall to the drivers, and today is no exception. Even with the advance of technology and the introduction of things like team radio, sometimes you can't beat a good old-fashioned bit of information on the pit board. Here we see the cars coming through turn 4. That is the BMW, the number 91 car of Oscar Lee and Betty Chen, driving in the GTS category, with the very famous BMW colours of white, blue and red there. The BMW M4 GT4, this Team AAI car. And being closely pursued by the 22 Team Pro Spec Porsche 911. This is probably the closest battle on the road at the moment. And nice to see some close racing here at Sepang. And it looks as if the Porsche was going for a little look up the inside, but not quite close enough to make the move stick there. Interesting also to note the difference in the engineering of these cars. The BMW, of course, with its engine in the front and rear-wheel drive. Traditionally, that's always been how BMWs have been made. And the Porsche with the engine in the back. And the Porsche going a little wide there, number 22. But lots of runoff here at this Sepang International Circuit, and that won't harm him too badly indeed. On this long back straight now, and approaching the hairpin, lots of good overtaking spots here. I would think the Porsche would be just too far behind to make a move here, but going deep into that hairpin, and that's sometimes a good tactic because it means you can get a faster exit of the corner. And if you can get a faster exit on that hairpin than the guy in front of you, then that can work in your favor, because there's this long straight here now, and look, you can see the Porsche already streaming past the BMW, and that was really very easy indeed. It looked as if the Porsche had gone deep into the hairpin to get better drive. Perhaps the BMW didn't get such good drive out of that final hairpin, and certainly paid the price there, because the Porsche, the number 22 car, up into 7th position now, and moving quite convincingly past the BMW. And that might well be expected, because the BMW not racing in the same category as the Porsche. The Porsche, obviously, all the Porsches in this race in the GTC category, and that BMW in the GTS category, so perhaps no surprise that the number 22 Team Pro Spec Porsche should move past so easily on the straight when there's a clear difference in the power and the specification of that car. Here we are looking at the second place car, the number 888 Audi, in a rather lonely second place now, 10 seconds behind the lead car of Billy Lowe, but 16 seconds ahead of the fellow Audi, the number 18 TKR Audi, that's currently being driven by Lu Jiwei. There we see that third place car, the number 18, being driven by Lu Jiwei, coming down the back straight now. And this is for P3 on the road, but of course this is second place in the GTC category, because of course the 999 Audi, currently being driven by Billy Lowe, is the sole representative driving in the GT3 category today. And the Audi R8 there is a mid-engine sports car, so the engine between the front axle and the rear axle, unlike the BMW. And here we are, this is the leader of the 2-litre turbo category. That's the 62 car driven by Chi Pei-wen and Zhao Peng. And that car more closely resembling the touring cars that we see in several categories all over the world. More closely resembling touring cars than the GT sports cars that are more powerful. And that car, as you can see there, would definitely have the engine in the front. There we see the 10th place car, and that is P2 in the 2-litre turbo category. You can see the sticker on the right hand side of the rear window there, denoting very clearly the category that these cars are racing in. That is the Seat Leon of Lin Shunming and Lin Xinying. And you can see the power differential there, because with 42 minutes of this 1 hour race to go, the leaders are already starting to lap the tail enders. That is the 999 Audi, first in GT3 and first on the road, driven by Billy Lowe, and he's already overtaken the 666 2-litre turbo Seat Leon. And we saw the 888 Audi also making a move on the Seat there. And quite to be expected, that sort of power difference. These Billy Lowe's best lap so far was a 2-minute 9.986, so just shy of 2 minutes and 10 seconds. And the 10th place car of Lin Shunming and Lin Xinying, a best lap of 2 minutes 30 seconds, so giving away around about 20 seconds a lap to the leading Audi there. So a clear difference, and very easy to see on the road. But 8 laps completed. Here we are, the second place 888 Audi. That's the car that is leading the GTC category, ahead of this man, Lu Jiwei, in the number 18 car, riding in second position in the GTC category. And you just saw on his left rear bumper there the yellow sticker, denoting very clearly that this car is racing in GTC. And in fact, you can see there on the top left of his windshield as you look at it now. And very good to see the sun still shining here, no threat of rain just yet. It's usually about this time of day that the heavens begin to open and everybody gets completely drenched, but thankfully in January it seems that the rain stays away a little longer than it does in, for example, July here at the Sepang International Circuit, which is just around about 1 hour away from Malaysia's capital, Kuala Lumpur. And a very impressive facility this is. lots of runoff area, a very wide track. You can see just how wide the track is there, and that promotes very good racing indeed. You see some tracks which are very narrow and it's very difficult to overtake, and there's no runoff area. Not so here at Sepang. Plenty of opportunity for overtaking, and the drivers are really able to push hard and attack the corners without fear of hitting the barrier or ending their race in the gravel. You can see lots of runoff in the back of your picture there. And we're riding back now with race leader Billy Lowe. Going through the back section of this track. Billy Lowe's best lap, a 2-minute 9.986, and that is almost 2.5 seconds faster than the best lap of the 888 Audi, the TSRT teammate that's racing in the GTC category. That car's best lap, a 2-minute 12.367. Then the third place car, the number 18 Audi, driven by Liu Jiwei, currently has a fastest lap of 2 minutes 14 seconds, 0.609, and that car now 37 seconds behind the lead Audi of Billy Lowe, who you see in your picture there, just going through to start lap 11. And coming up to lap one of the back markers, that looks like the 62 Seat of Chi Pei-wen and Zhao Peng. Yes, it is. As they go through this very tight right-left complex, that left-hander at turn 2, very difficult to see because you approach it from a higher elevation and you approach it very quickly. It's very difficult to get everything all lined up accurately as they go through. Here we see them approaching the hairpin at turn 4, a useful overtaking spot there. And then this sweeping left-hander at turn 5, leading into the right-hander at turn 6. Not much prospect of overtaking there, but certainly a very good challenge for the drivers. Very reminiscent of the Maggots, Beckett's Chapel complex at Silverstone, and indeed the first few corners at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin. Also a track designed by German architect Hermann Tilke, who designed this Sepang International Raceway. Billy Lowe there in first position, looking very comfortable with things. Now we're looking at the 22 Porsche, the Team Pro Spec car driven by David Lau and Gary Chung. That's in 6th position. In 7th position, the car just going through your picture now, that was the 69 Porsche of Jackie Wu and Alex Lee. And here we are looking at the number 91 BMW, racing in the GTS category. That's the FIS Team AAI BMW M4 car, driven by Oscar Lee and Betty Chen. And we're about 1 minute away from the opening of the pit window. Each of these cars have to make one mandatory pit stop, and they must do so in about a 10-minute window. So you can see the clock at the top of your picture there, reading 35 minutes and 30 seconds. Once that clock hits 35 minutes exactly, then the pit window is open and the drivers are eligible to make their mandatory driver change. They have 10 minutes to do so before that clock hits 25 minutes to go. And if they come in before then or after then they will be subject to a penalty, perhaps a drive-through penalty or even a stop-and-go penalty. And that will ruin their races, I would think. The pit window is now open, so I would think we would start to see some of the cars coming in soon. I would imagine Billy Lowe would come in, and the 98 car, that is Jeffrey Z, who we spoke to on the grid. He's coming in, and taking his place will be Zhang Zhichang, who is one of the 3 pro drivers. There you see him waiting to come in. Now the 3 teams, or the 3 cars I should say, with pro drivers, I would expect them to come in at the earliest opportunity, because the pro drivers would in theory be quicker than the AM drivers. Now they have a 10-minute window in which to make their pit stops, but in coming in at the earliest possible opportunity, Jeffrey Z was only driven for about 25 minutes, and now his teammate Zhang Zhichang, who in theory is the faster driver, will be driving for 35 minutes, or just as near as makes no difference, 35 minutes. So that may be very good tactics from the 98 car, the 69 Racing team, because in theory then they have their faster driver driving for the longest proportion of the race. Here we see the race leader, Billy Lowe, coming in. He's also taking the opportunity to pit relatively early in this pit window and hand over to Chen Wei-an, who is another of the pro drivers. So again, perhaps a good tactical move here from the TSRT Racing team, having their pro driver Chen Wei-an driving for a longer proportion of the race than he would otherwise have done if Billy Lowe had come in with only 25 or 26 minutes left to run. As you can see, instead, there's 33 minutes left, and Chen Wei-an, I would think, will enjoy himself for the rest of this race. He's got a big lead already over the 888 car, but of course he'll have to stop for longer. The mandatory pit stop for the 999 car is 81 seconds, whereas for the 888 Audi, that was in second position, only has to stop for 66 seconds. So the 999 Audi stopping for 15 seconds longer. There you see the 18 car of Dennis Zhang, who's just getting in now. Lu Jiawei, who we spoke to on the grid, coming out of that car. Lots of commotion going on. This is traditionally a very busy, very chaotic part of the race. That's the number 9 Porsche 911, driven by Cui Yue and Lawrence Liu. Cui Yue, the 3rd and final pro driver in the field. So that car also has to stop for a long time, 76 seconds. And we see the cars filing out now. The 999 car of Chen Wei-an, after what must have seemed like an eternity, 81 seconds that car was stationary, but now coming back onto the track. And here we see a close fight there between the 888 Audi and the 98 car. The 888 Audi there filing into the pit lane. It does look rather confusing when you look at it from the angle. The pit lane follows on directly from that hairpin, so it does appear at first as if the car is simply taking a wide line into the hairpin before peeling off into the pits. But the 888 car now into the pits for that mandatory driver change. And that car, as I said, will only be stationary for 66 seconds. So I would think, once the dust has settled on the pit stops, that this car might be the leader on the road. I would think the 999 Audi, having had to have stopped for 15 seconds longer, would now be in second position on the road. But it's hard to tell at the moment. It's all a bit chaotic. Everyone's taken their pit stops at different times, and the dust hasn't quite settled yet. On the track, you see the 98 car, the 98 Audi, and the number 9 Porsche going at it, hammer and tongs. That's Zhang Zhichang driving the Audi, and Cui Yue in the Porsche behind him, the number 9 car. And some good close racing between these two, the two pro drivers, as we see the 999 car, now driven by Chen Wei-an, overtaking the BMW FIS Team 91 car, as we would expect it to do so. Those two not racing in the same category. And the 888 Audi now coming out, and you can see at the top of your picture there the 999 car driven by Chen Wei-an, still just going past the start-finish straight. So we have a new race leader now. The 888 Audi in the lead of the race. And the 999 car in third position at the moment, because the 69 Porsche, well, I spoke too soon. I was going to say the 69 Porsche in second place, but you saw the 999 Audi driven by Chen Wei-an going through on the inside. Here we see the BMW, the 91 car in the pits for that driver change. And that car stationary for 56 seconds. You sometimes see the drivers running out, and a little bit of a miscommunication there. You sometimes see the drivers running and carrying their seats with them. And those seats are molded to the driver's backside, and very particular they are indeed. It can't be much fun when you're sitting in a seat that doesn't fit. And here we see again, and just getting away a little bit too early there, and the mechanics thankfully getting out of the way, not too much in the way of incident there, and the 91 BMW on its merry way. 28 minutes to go in this race one of the GT Masters Asia, and that is the 62 car, the Seat Leon, in the 2-litre turbo category, driven by Chi Pei-wen and Zhao Peng. You see the driver being strapped in there. Lots of preparations, very difficult to strap yourself in. That's why you see the mechanics even going into the car to help the driver strap himself in effectively. And that number 62 car on its way and coming through now onto the main straight. You see the two Audis. We'll wait to see who's in first position. It's still the 888 Audi, the GTC car, in the lead, and Chen Wei-an in the 999 Audi just behind. Hasn't managed to find a way past just yet, but 27 minutes to do so. And that car, there's a certain inevitability about the way that Chen Wei-an is inexorably creeping up on his fellow Audi stablemate. Here we see the 69 car, the Porsche coming in. And the pit window won't be open for too much longer. Once you see the clock hit 25, the pit window will be shut. So another driver change taking place. You see all sorts of accoutrements from the seat being thrown out there. These seats have to fit the drivers very particularly indeed. And you can see there, that's the 666 2-litre turbo Seat Leon car. And all sorts of seating arrangements being thrown out and strapped in. You see the mechanics taking advantage of the space in the side of the car there, where there would be a passenger seat in the road car. But in this racing car, there's just an empty space. You can see the mechanics using that empty space to get in and help the drivers get comfortable and strap themselves in. It does seem like an eternity when the drivers are waiting there for potentially 80 seconds before they can get go again. And I did say that there was something inevitable about the way that the 999 car of Chen Wei-an was creeping up on the 888 Audi, and indeed Chen Wei-an has now retaken the lead. That is your new race leader, the 999 Audi, leading both the race outright and the GT3 category here at this Sepang International Circuit, and already pulling out a considerable lead over the 888 Audi. But this is still a very good race from that driver pairing of Po-han Chen and Yuan Ming-su. They've driven very well. Came up from further down on the grid to slot into second place. And some good racing from those two drivers indeed. Here we are looking at the leader, the 999 car, driven by Chen Wei-an. Just under 25 minutes to go. We're just over half distance now in this race one of the GT Masters Asia here at Sepang. And Kai-Shin is down in the pit lane, and we'll hear more from some of the drivers now. And Kai-Shin down there with Billy Lowe. Let's hear more from him.
頭先你嘅表現真係好好啊！你覺得你唔滿意嘅表現啊？
其實我都好滿意自己嘅表現嘅，因為始終1個小時耐力賽咧，我哋嘅車隊嘅對策就係唔換輪胎，咁啊變咗我哋套胎要跑1個鐘頭嘅，所以我就係其實頭幾圈就做翻個正常嘅圈速時間之後咧，要保護住條兩條輪胎同埋個剎車，俾我拍檔陳明安去繼續去完成埋佢。如果唔係佢去到後邊咧，就會比較好難揸，或者可能完成唔到咁嘅狀況嘅會係啦。
真係好犀利啊！真係恭喜晒 ，Thank you。 he mentioned that his strategy is not to change the tire. So throughout the journey, he has been taking care of his tire a lot and then to pass to the partner. Back to the commentator.
Yes, and while these cars do have to make a mandatory pit stop in the middle of the race, there's no requirement for them to change tyres. And indeed, I don't think we've seen any of the cars changing tyres so far. The pit crews in these teams are not particularly large, and as you could see, a lot of the mechanics and engineers very, very busy ensuring that the drivers can get out and in of the cars in a satisfactory manner. And we see some overtaking there at the hairpin. That was the number 9 Porsche of Cui Yue overtaking the 98 car of Zhang Zhichang. The two pro drivers there going at it hammer and tongs, and that is for 4th position, 3rd in the GTC category. Cui Yue going inside the Seat there, putting another lap on the 2-litre turbo car as they go through the turn 1, turn 2 complex, a very tight sequence of corners. And into the pits comes the number 62 Seat. And this is after the pit window has shut. And the car just driving through the pit lane there. I'm not sure if that was a drive-through penalty or perhaps the pit crew simply not ready for him. But the 62 car now back in the race as we watch the number 999 car driven by Chen Wei-an putting another lap on one of the back markers and looking very comfortable indeed at the front of the field. As I was mentioning earlier, these mandatory pit stops, they do all have to take them, each of the teams and cars and drivers, but there's no obligation to change tyres or do any work on the car. And you saw earlier on a lot of the mechanics and engineers much more preoccupied with helping the first driver out of the car and helping the second driver back in. You saw lots of seats being thrown out and bolted back in and drivers being buckled in. And let's go back down to the pits with Kai-Shin now.
真的是太棒了，一直都处在领先。你对你自己的表现满意吗？
我们一开始的速度配置还不错，但是因为要考虑到第2个车手嘛，所以车子不能逼得太极限，所以圈速也算理想，但是可能可以还好一些。不过车子有一些机件状况，就像我们的刹车好像越来越不太够了，可能要更换了，所以我们比赛准备前没有准备到，真的是算我们自己的疏忽了，我自己的疏忽。
这还是很棒了，继续努力哦，加油，谢谢。He mentioned that the hardest part is to taking care of the car to pass it to the partner. And during the journey, he realized that the brake is not that function that well. So it's their mistake that they couldn't change it on time. So he hoped that he will do it better next time. Thank you.
Yes, an interesting point there from Yuan-Ming Su, talking about having to look after the brakes and manage the car. And into the pits there, that looks like the number 98 Audi of Zhang Zhichang, and this doesn't look like a scheduled stop. We saw Zhang Zhichang going into the pits earlier for his mandatory driver change. He's already been in, so there's no obligation for a pit stop, and this looks like a bit of an issue for the number 98 Audi. Opening the door there, one of the mechanics, and having a bit of a look. And back into the race goes Zhang Zhichang, but he will certainly have lost time a little bit there. We didn't see what happened. It didn't appear as if he'd made any contact with anybody, and I don't see any damage. I don't see any bodywork hanging off as if he's made contact with somebody or something. So Zhang Zhichang, anyway, back into the race now, but quite a lot of time having been lost. And interesting to hear from Yuan-Ming Su earlier, talking about managing the brakes and managing the car for the other driver, because one of the main points of racing like this, when you have to share the car, is of course if you make a mistake, if you go off, then it's not just your race that's been ruined, it's the other driver as well. And that's something that in single-seater racing, when there doesn't tend to be driver changes, that's not something that the drivers have to consider. But in GT racing like this, especially in endurance racing, when the drivers sometimes change several times over, and you as a driver have the responsibility to look after the car and bring it home so that your fellow co-drivers can also drive the car. Otherwise, you'll have a bit of explaining to do if you put the car into the wall in the first lap, and then it's not just you that's out of the race, it's those two as well. Here we are looking at the number 9 car. That is Cui Yue, driving in 4th position in the 69 racing team Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. Just over 17 minutes left in this race 1 of 2 in the GT Masters Asia, to be held here at the Sepang International Circuit this weekend. And it's nice to hear from the drivers as well in the pit lane after they've just done what is a very grueling shift indeed, especially in the heat and humidity of Malaysia. I can tell you it's certainly nothing like Silverstone in January, coming to somewhere like Malaysia. It's a very, very demanding circuit. It's a very long lap, lots of very demanding corners, lots of G-forces on the drivers' necks and straining on the drivers' arms. And it's certainly a very big physical challenge indeed, this Sepang International Circuit. And here we are going up the hill, hard braking down into the right-hander at turn 4. That is the 999 car of Chen Weiyan. 19 laps having been completed and 7 seconds ahead of the fellow TSRT Audi R8, now driven by Pohan Chen after taking over from his teammate Yuan-Ming Su, who we heard from just a few minutes ago down in the pit lane. All 10 cars still in the race, no mechanical failures and no mistakes, nobody spinning off or colliding with the wall or other drivers. So nice to see all 10 cars still in contention here at Sepang. We're 3/4 of the way through the race now, just 15 minutes left. And Chen Wei-an continuing on his merry way, looking pretty comfortable at the front, as well he might, driving that GT3 spec Audi. And that Audi R8, the GT3 car, around about 60 kilograms lighter than the 3 other Audi R8 LMS Cup cars in this race. Those, of course, all racing in the slightly lower GTC category. And those cars weighing in at 1,310 kilograms, whereas the 999 Audi, a comparative flyweight at 1,250. The 888 car just putting a lap on the 666 Seat, and you can see some bodywork flapping just at the front right of that car, so I wonder if the 666 Seat has had a little bit of a prang somewhere. You can see the bodywork just come a little loose there. I wonder if that's from contact with another car. If it is, it doesn't look too terminal, it doesn't look too dangerous. It's not come detached from the car, and it's not on the racetrack just yet, but I would think the stewards would want to just keep a close eye on that and make sure it doesn't dislodge any further, because if it does and it ends up strewn across the track, then that could be very hazardous indeed. We don't want to see drivers running over that, what is very sharp piece of bodywork, and run the risk of puncturing a tyre or having that bodywork getting jammed on the underside of the car, or perhaps in the radiator grille at the front. So something to keep an eye on there, but it doesn't look as if that piece of bodywork is too recalcitrant just yet, as we see the number 98 car of Zhang Jiechang, who we saw in the pits for an unscheduled stop a few seconds ago, losing a bit of time and gaining back one position that he lost earlier, passing that number 91 FIS Team AAI BMW car, the only car racing in the GTS category, and that BMW tipping the scales at a rather hefty 1,440 kilograms, so by some distance the heaviest car in the field today, 130 kilograms heavier than the GTC spec Audi R8 LMS Cup cars. There we see the pit boards coming out, just informing the drivers of the gap in front and behind. So the number 91 BMW M4 now in 6th position. Just under 12 minutes to go now here at Sepang. And the light's starting to go down. You can see the sun shining at much more of an angle on the cars now. And that might start to play havoc with the drivers a little bit. They'll have to deal with the glare from the sunshine as the sun sets over this Sepang International Circuit. It's 6 p.m. local time now, so we haven't got too much more in the way of sunshine. And at some point, or at some points on the racetrack, you would think the drivers would have to contend with the glare from that late afternoon, early evening sunshine here in Sepang. The two Porsches there as they go through turn 4. Very close racing there between 22 and the number 9 car of Cui Yue. Just putting another lap on the 22 car driven by David Lau and Gary Chung. You see the cars there going through that turn 7 and turn 8 complex, a nice little double apex right-hander, difficult to get right, reminiscent of the double right-hander at the Degner curves at Suzuka. Another very well known and very storied track in Asia. And coming down the back straight now. The two Audis going at it. That is the 18 car going inside the 888 car. So Dennis Jiang going up into second position, and Po-Han Chen, the 888 Audi, now down to third. A very clean overtaking move. Lots of space on this track. It's a very wide circuit, lots of space for overtaking, and that hairpin at turn 15, a favourite spot for overtaking. It comes off the back of a very long straight, allowing for some hard braking and a dive up the inside, as we saw Dennis Jiang do so well just then. And if you don't make the move in turn 15, or if you're just a little bit further behind, there's always the long start-finish straight immediately afterwards. So you can position yourself nicely through turn 15, going very deep into that corner, going slow into the corner to then get a faster exit. And that is a very good tactic indeed for drivers who want to make an overtaking move on the start-finish straight. Here we are now with the number 18 car of Dennis Jiang, 0.6 of a second up on the 888 car of Po-Han Chen. He'll have to negotiate that BMW as a back marker now, but should do so without too much in the way of difficulty. And indeed, yes, Dennis Jiang already passed the number 91 BMW, and I have little doubt that Po-Han Chen will be following suit very shortly indeed. You see him closing up on the back of the BMW, but it can be difficult to get past on this twisty infield section. And Po-Han Chen perhaps just losing a little bit of time there, finally getting past the BMW, who slows and very, as is proper and gentlemanly, slows and moves over to let the leader through. So Po-Han Chen with just under 8 minutes to go, ready for perhaps a final crack at Dennis Jiang. A little bit of a gap developing though, so perhaps Po-Han Chen, the best he could hope for is a mistake from Dennis Jiang. But we haven't seen too much in the way of mistakes from any of the drivers so far this weekend. Lots of very clean racing, not too much in the way of incident, and all 10 cars still in the race. Up at the front, the 999 Audi R8 of Chen Wei-an. 23 laps having been completed, and 10 seconds ahead of the number 18 car, the TKR Racing car, currently driven by Dennis Jiang. So it's an Audi R8 1, 2, 3 at the moment. It would be a 1, 2, 3, 4, but spoiling the party is the number 9 Porsche, currently being driven by Cui Yue. And that car in 4th place, and in 5th place, the number 98 Audi of Zhang Zheqiang. So not a 1, 2, 3, 4 clean sweep for Audi just yet here in Sepang. And Cui Yue showing a good turn of pace in that number 9 Porsche now. So I think the Audis may have to wait another day to get a clean sweep of the top 4 places. But it does look as if they'll be taking home the GT3 category win, because Chen Wei-an and Billy Lowe's number 999 car, the only car competing in that category. There you see it going through your picture now. The GTC category currently being led by the number 18 car, driven by Dennis Jiang. So it does look as if Audi will have double happiness here at this first race in Sepang, winning both the GT3 and the GTC categories. Just over 5 minutes to go now, and that bodywork still hanging rather precariously off the side of the 666 Seat Leon, but doesn't appear to be doing any damage, and it doesn't appear to be slowing that car down too much. There's quite a gap between the 666 Seat and the next car up the road. But we're looking now at the 999 Audi R8 LMS GT3 car at the other end of the field, sitting pretty in first place. There's Zhang Zhichang in 5th position. And it doesn't look as if Zhang Zhichang will have enough to catch Cui Yue at the moment. He's a whole minute and a half behind. We only have 4 minutes to go, so barring a collapse of almighty proportions, it does appear that Cui Yue and Lawrence Liu in the Team 69 Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car will be finishing this race in 4th place. Chen Weian there about to put a lap on Zhang Zhichang, who lets him through. And that number 999 car on the back straight now, approaching the hairpin. A favourite overtaking opportunity, a favourite overtaking spot, I should say, for drivers in this series here today and in many other series. This Sepang International Circuit nice and wide, and plenty of opportunity for a dive up the inside of turn 15. Another good overtaking spot is this one, turn 1. And very tricky to get right because turn 2 follows almost immediately. And that is a blind corner and going downhill, so very difficult to get right. Here we are riding with Dennis Zhang, who is currently in 2nd position. Going through that difficult turn 2, you can see there just how much elevation change there is. Very difficult to see the apex of the corner when you're sitting at the top there. Dennis Zhang going through the right-hander at turn 4. Another good spot for overtaking there, comes as it does after a considerable squirt of the throttle and hard on the brakes for the right-hander at turn 4. Now you see Dennis Zhang going through the twisty infield, turn 5 and 6. Those sweeping curves, a left-hander and then a right-hander. Chen Weian there, still leading this race with just under 2 minutes to go. And further down the field, that is the 62 car of Chi Pei-wen. And the 666 Seat, they're having another lap put on it by Chen Weian in the 999 car. The 666 Seat 4 laps down now. Obviously a considerable performance differential between the 2-litre turbo car and the GT3 car that you see in your picture now. And there you see the marshal holding out the last lap sign, and that sign does exactly what it says on the tin. This is the last lap, just 50 odd seconds to go, as you can see from your picture, or the counter in the middle of your picture. Coming through to start his last lap is Dennis Zhang. And Dennis Zhang 7 seconds ahead of Po-Han Chen in the 888 Audi, and I should think that would be enough to keep Po-Han Chen at bay and secure 2nd place. There's certainly no catching this man, Chen Weian. Now 19 seconds ahead of Dennis Zhang in 2nd place, and very much on his victory lap now. A relatively untroubled run for Chen Weian and his teammate Billy Lowe, who started the race and who we heard from just after he gave up his seat for the professional driver Chen Weian, one of only 3 professional drivers on the grid today. the others being Cui Yue, who's used his skills to good effect to finish in a solid 4th place for the number 9 car, the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car belonging to the 69 racing team. And the other pro driver, Zhang Zhichang, in the number 98 Audi R8 LMS Cup. But some close racing further down the field, especially in the GTC category, where we have 6 different cars, but no one really threatening this man, Chen Weiyan, or his teammate Billy Lowe earlier in the race. This car, the only entry in the GT3 category, as it comes around the final corner now. And the 999 Audi R8 LMS Ultra GT3 car, driven by Chen Weiyan and Billy Lowe, wins race 1 here at Sepang in the GT Masters Asia Series. You see there the checkered flag. And coming through in 2nd position, there he is. That is Dennis Zhang, coming through to finish 2nd. A very fine achievement for himself and his teammate Lu Jiwei, who started this race. The number 18 car finishing in 2nd place there. In 3rd place, the 888 Audi of Pohan Chen. And the number 98 car, the other Audi, just crossing the line behind Chen Weiyan, a lap down. Some of the back markers coming through now. And all finishing the race without too much in the way of incident. Here we see the number 91 BMW, the FIS team car, coming through to finish in 6th position. And that is the 62 car of Chi Pei-wen and Zhao Peng, finishing in 8th place. A couple of laps down. But today belongs to that car, the 999 Audi R8 LMS, competing in the GT3 category, driven by Billy Lowe and Chen Weiyan. A very convincing victory indeed. And it's been a good day for Audi all round. Those cars finishing 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 5th on the road. And in the GT3 and GTC categories, Audi's taking the win in both. And you see the cars just coming round now on a victory lap, going fairly quickly for cars that have already finished the race, but you'll see them filing into the pits very shortly for a debrief with engineers and mechanics, and perhaps a little time to reflect and enjoy what's been a very successful race 1 here at the Sepang International Circuit for the Audi team. There you see them taking what looks like the wide line. It's actually a very wide line because it peels off into the pits here at Sepang. Does look rather reminiscent of the entrance to the pit lane at the Shanghai International Circuit. There are certainly some similarities between those two. Both designed by Hermann Tilke, the German architect who has designed so many of the world's top racetracks over the last 20 years or so. And there's Chen Weiyan. The top 3 cars coming through into Parc Fermé now. Chen Weiyan just stepping out of his car, mechanic helping him there. And Chen Weiyan there receiving the congratulations from his team after what's been a very solid afternoon's racing. Very hot here in Malaysia, even at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and I should think those drivers would want to get out of those fireproof overalls and racing overalls as quickly as possible and have a nice cold bath. All the drivers coming through now. Those cars will be taken away and scrutinized just to make sure that everything is as it should be. All the cars following the letter of the law. Lots of conversation and conference going on down there. And another race tomorrow here at Sepang in the GT Masters Asia category. And let's go down to the pit lane now and hear from Chen Weian.
真的太恭喜了，恭喜你们！请问你满意你这次的表现吗？
很满意我的表现，感谢我的队友 ，OK 了。
应该说今天一切都很顺利嘛，然后没有什么就是突发的状况，所以都很顺利。
好，谢谢，恭喜你们。They mentioned that everything went very well and they are very satisfied with their performance. Back to commentator.
Yes, Billy Lowe and Chen Weian understandably very happy with themselves after what was a relatively trouble-free run to victory. Not too much in the way of incident for the leading 999 Audi. But of course they'll have it all to do again tomorrow for another hour. And let's hear now from the second place car, the number 18 car, driven by Dennis Zhang and Liu Jiwei.
恭喜你们得到 GTC 组的冠军啊！请问你满意你自己的表现吗？
还比较满意，对，今天很愉快，今天是个愉快的比赛，对。
一切都非常顺利，就有点热，真的有点热，闷得厉害。
好，谢谢，恭喜你们。They are also very happy with their result and very satisfied with their performance. Back to commentator.
Well, you could see Dennis Zhang there struggling to catch his breath. It's very hot here in Malaysia, and obviously half an hour's grueling racing in these conditions clearly takes it out of you. Dennis Zhang resting, having a drink of water, trying to catch his breath. Liu Jiwei obviously having done the first half of the race, nice and somewhat fully recovered. But it does take it out of you racing here. Let's have a look at the final classification then. So winning the race overall and in the GT3 category, Billy Lowe and Chen Weian. In second place and winning the GTC category, Dennis Zhang and Liu Jiwei. Third place was the 888 car driven by Pohan Chen and Yunming Su. And in fourth place, the number 9 car driven by Cui Yue and Lawrence Liu, the only other car on the lead lap. Fifth place, the number 98 car driven by Zhang Zhechang and Jeffrey Z. In sixth place, the number 91 BMW driven by Oscar Lee and Betty Chen. Then we had in seventh place the 22 car, the GTC driven by David Lau and Gary Chung. In eighth place, the 62 car and the winner of the 2-litre turbo category, the Seat of Chi Pei-wen and Zhao Peng. And let's head back down to Parc Fermé now.
真的太恭喜你们了，获得 GTS 组的冠军。请问你满意这次的表现吗？
还不错，今天的 car 非常 understeer， 可是我感觉我们今天的 performance 还不错，对。
那很开心可以得到冠军，这样。
好，谢谢，恭喜你们。They are very happy with their result and their performance are very smooth as well. So once again, back to commentator.
Well, interesting to hear Oscar Lee talking about the understeer that the car was suffering from there. It did look when we saw going through turn 1 that BMW wasn't perhaps turning in as the drivers would have liked. Obviously the BMW, the heaviest car on the grid, and perhaps not quite finding the sweet spot of the setup yet, that FIS team. And hopefully they'll be, I would imagine, hoping to sort that out for race 2 in the GT Masters Asia, which will be taking place tomorrow. You see the sun beginning to set now, And let's have a look at some of the highlights from today's race.